Hello! First of all, thank you for the literal thousands of views that's on the YouTube playthrough. It's hosted on Grim Films YouTube channel. Link's gonna be in the description, and all the kind words some of you have for the Dungeon Master. That would be me. It was an incredible joy, kind of like planning and running that game for them. It lasted a couple hours long. We had to cut it for time. So I'm really glad it's gone out finally. You know, we've been sitting on it for literal months because of the global situation. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. And yes, it is a little bit late. We had originally planned for this video to come out to promote the Adventures in Forgotten Realms card set, and yeah, but you know what? It's a two for one. It still got out, and it's great to see in the comments there are people discovering and saying that, hey, I know what D&D is. I've always wanted to play it, and they're kind of like meeting friends, and I'm starting to see some discussions going around on people kind of like forming groups either online or hoping to meet up in person to play. Stay safe, everyone. The thing isn't over yet. But yeah, this is the entire reason why I'm curating Kaki Tabletop. I literally want to help other people find more Kaki to play tabletop games with, of which D&D is one of them. It's a tabletop game, right? It's a role-playing game. So in my last video, I put up this screenshot where I went through every single card from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Magic the Gathering card set, well, that's a mouthful, and tried to categorize them based on Dungeons & Dragons concepts. It must have been very difficult to translate so many of these huge concepts that take up literal pages and books into Magic the Gathering cards. So it was interesting to sort of look at what they've done and how they've translated the lore, the art, the flavor, the experience in the Magic card sets. Concepts like, checking for traps, or the idea that a party will meet in a tavern, and the various monsters, of which they usually have an entire page dedicated to them being condensed down into a card. It must have been very difficult to maintain the flavor, the sort of thematics of D&D in Magic the Gathering. Alright, so I've gone through all 402 cards for Adventures Forgotten Realms Magic Gathering card set. What a mouthful. And I've broken them down into 8 categories. I put a bunch of cards together that I consider the class cards, the creature cards, encounters, equipment, other items, a whole bunch that I categorize as legends, some locations, spells, and abilities. So let's look at class, right? So when you're going to play a game of Dungeons & Dragons, you need to create a player character. And when you're filling up your character sheet, you have to choose a class. If you check the player's handbook, there are 8 classes to choose from. There are the more fighty types, barbarians, fighters, monks, paladins, and rangers and rogues. And then there are the spellcaster types, the sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. Then there are some of those that kind of like in between, that they're most likely the support class. They're the bards, clerics, and druids. And what I found interesting in Magic the Gathering is that they have created enchantments with the subtype class. They're not player enchantments, which I thought would have been more flavorful because, in D&D it's all about the players, and, it would have been cool if the enchantment in Magic the Gathering attached to the players as per some of the previous cards. But, I guess having an enchantment simplifies it a little bit. And in these enchantments, you notice that as you cast it, they're level 1, and then you can raise them to level 2 and level 3. If you check the player's handbook again, you'll notice that there are class tables, and these go from level 1 to level 20. So if you divide 20 by 3, it's about 6 or 7. And that's interesting because on the card, every third increment, that more or less corresponds to the fact that in the class tables at around level 6 or 7, each class does like a subtype thing. For example, druids get circle of something at about level 6 or 7. Monks get order of something at about level 6 or 7. Then when they hit about level 14, they get yet another specialization. So kudos to Wizard of the Coast for translating that Then when you look at all the creatures in this Magic the Gathering set, there's a whole bunch of them which have got two creature types. This clearly corresponds to, player characters having a race and a class together. So for example, human fighter, or like, elf wizard, that sort of thing. So when you look at these categories, you've got barbarians, bards, cleric, druid, fighter, monk, paladin, rangers, rogues, sorcerer, warlocks, and wizards. Additionally, I found artificers as well. I would like to point out that artificers is not from the player's handbook, but it's actually from the new Eberron campaign book. I mean, relatively new. And in here, they have the additional 10th class of D&D. So let's look at barbarians first. Between barbarians and fighters, to be honest, it was a little bit of a toss-up, because I found a bunch of creatures that had the creature type warrior, and I felt some of the warriors fit more fighters and some of them fit in the barbarian classification, I suppose. And the reason why I put them there is because, all my barbarians are red, as you can see here. But for the warriors under the barbarian categorization, if you look at the description, they have menace and haste, which I feel is a very barbarian thing. Because in Dungeons and Dragons, one of the big things about being a barbarian is that you go into rage mode, like the Hulk. And that kind of fits the whole menace haste thing in Magic the Gathering. So I put these guys under barbarian. And since we're talking about them, skipping ahead, let's go to fighters. You'll see that there are a few warriors in here, and again, most of the fighters are white. As expected, because fighters are very soldiery type. And one of them is literally a soldier. And you'll see here there are a whole bunch of paladins. Their creature type is knight. Now I suppose they didn't create a new creature type that is paladin, because I guess functionally paladins are knights, because you're playing a game of D&D, your paladin probably came from a knightly order. So yeah, I guess it fits. Let's not make a new creature type if we don't need to. And knights are a long-staying creature type from the old days in Magic the Gathering as well. So let's go back into alphabetical order. Just looking at bards. Now there's a bunch of bards. Then there are clerics, another old mainstay of Magic the Gathering, and of course the one necromantic cleric is black, so there you go. Druids, no surprise, they're all green, and again another classic creature type in Magic the Gathering. Jumping ahead, there are monks, and they're all white. I'm not sure I would have considered that. I mean, it's interesting when you think about it. In D&D, monks have a order of something, and I guess if you're orderly, it's a very white color type thing. So yeah, I guess it makes sense. Skipping ahead again, there are rangers, and then there are a whole bunch of rogues. Now, no surprise here, the rogues are mostly Dimir, blue and black, but then there's a red rogue. I'm not sure how this makes sense, but I'll take it. And then sorcerers. Now, this mystified me a little bit when I was doing this, because I couldn't find a sorcerer creature type. Then I saw there a whole bunch of shamans, and I went, these must be the sorcerers, because in D&D, sorcerers get the magic from their bloodline, and I guess that's a very shamany thing. You get the magic from the inside. So yeah, shamans are sorcerers in Magic the Gathering. Interestingly enough, they're all red and blue. Okay. I guess because sorcerers have a wild magic table, that's a very Izzet thing, so checks out. Next, there are the warlocks. So warlocks being black color in Magic the Gathering totally makes sense, because black is about that little bit of greed. They want to get more power, so warlocks get their magic from their patron. And then there's a blue one. Well, I guess because it's the Feywild. Feywild is magic from fairies, and fairies are typically blue. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. And lastly, wizards, mainstay of Magic the Gathering. They're all blue. I guess makes total sense. And lastly, the artificer is white. I would have thought it's blue, but flavor-wise, it's a smithy, so I guess it's smith's soldiery type. Yeah, I guess it's white. Next, a whole category called creatures. So if you go through the rest of the creatures in Magic the Gathering's set, you'll see that there are a lot of random animals, and I checked most of them. They do not correspond directly. The names might not match exactly. For example, Loyal Warhound, there is no such entry in the monster manual, but if you go through it, you will find a Warhound. So I guess rather than waste their precious namespace calling it Warhound, they called it Loyal Warhound to give it a little bit more of that adjective, to sort of separate it from all the rest. And because I did this research, if you're interested, I will have a link in the description to all the Magic the Gathering cards and the corresponding D&D Beyond entry for each of these creatures. And I've actually got a subcategory called NPCs. Now in Magic the Gathering, when you go into an encounter, it may be a negotiation or combat encounter. You can turn a combat encounter into a negotiation encounter, hat tip for players if you want. But to do that, the creature will need to understand you. So everyone in the game speaks Common. Some creatures might not. They speak Draconic, Elvish or whatever. But you can speak to them. They have the ability to speak a language of some kind. So if they don't, you'll have to use animal handling. If they do, you can attempt to persuade them, or you can lie to them or something, and it's just a dice roll. So I thought it would be interesting to split all the creatures in this Magic the Gathering set to those in the D&D world can speak and those who can't speak. So again, links in the description if you want to see the research I've done. Next, encounters. Now this category is really cool because you have a whole bunch of cards that start with you something something, and these are phrases that the Dungeon Master would say to players. I'm going to spend a bit of time describing each of them because they're pretty cool what they refer to. So you hear something on watch. Players in the game do a lot of things and they might need to rest to regain the HP or to regain spell slots, and when you're doing a short rest or a long rest, you might have a character or take turns to be on the watch in case your camp is ambushed in the middle of the night or something, right? So you hear something on watch. That's a danger that you might be discovered in the middle of a rest. And you're ambushed on the road. So in the game of D&D, you do a lot of traveling between different towns, especially larger scale campaigns. And along the way, just to spice things up a bit, a dungeon master might roll a random encounter. You're in a dangerous region of the world. You might be ambushed by some villains or random enemies, right? You come to a river. So as a dungeon master, I'll say not all players know how boats work, or your player characters can't swim. So rivers present a significant problem in the game of D&D. You find the villain's lair. So this is something that maybe your players are dungeon delving, they're looking for something, and they eventually come across the villain, and it's that part of the campaign, right? So yeah. You see a guard approach. So while you're looking for the villain's lair, you may attempt to break into a place, you may attempt to do something sneaky, and you see a guard approaching, and this could turn into a negotiation, and if things turn ugly, turn into combat. So yeah, that's a beat that a lot of dungeon masters use in their campaigns. You come to a Gnoll camp. Now there are some monsters in D&D which are very often used as for villainous roles. Gnolls are one of them. So you encounter one of their camps in the forest or something. You find some visitors. Oh no, you find some prisoners. You may go into a dungeon and you find like a space where there's clearly a jail and some people in it. So you may want to release them, slow down your party, or not release them. You come and get them later. This might create some conflict between the lawful and non-lawful players in your party. You see a pair of goblins. Like the gnolls before, these are yet another standard, villainous minion, I suppose. You find a cursed idol. So if your dungeon master tells you it's a cursed idol, don't touch it. But players always do that, trying to get something out of the dungeon, right? Treasure and some powerful artifact. You happen on a glade. This may be intentional, or your players fail a survival check while going through the wilderness, and you might happen upon a group of very xenophobic elves who probably want to kill you, or you found a place to rest. And last but not least, you meet in a tavern. This may actually be the most significant card here because, as is tradition for most Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that I've ever played and run, the adventurers begin in a tavern. They may find a quest on a notice board. A character might burst in asking for help, and a tavern's kind of where you get a short respite in the middle of the campaign, do some role playing, get together some intel. So yeah, you meet in a tavern. Pretty nice to see it as a card here. And then there are two subcategories I've got. One is advance the plot, the other one is party actions. In advance the plot, these are things that it's not something Dungeon Master or the players will specifically say, but they are things that happen in the campaign, and you see it in multiple campaigns. You've got secret doors, you may meet a beholder, there's a grim bounty, and if you look at the art, there are some things that refer very specifically to things that come from D&D itself. For example, Devour Intellect is that you see a creature with a brain, it will eat your mental health. Eyes of the Beholder, it's a nice play on a common English phrase, but it's literally a beholder, laser shooting eye monster. And I find some sort of like more interesting references, like Unexpected Windfall is one example. That is actually a magical item in the game, and there's a separate card for that later called the Deck of Many Things that you will actually find in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And if you look at that card description, or rather that item description, the player would pull a card from this magical deck, and depending on what card they pull, something would happen. And what is being illustrated on that is actually the gem card. And somewhere in the description, blah blah blah, a whole bunch of treasures, gems, and gold appears at your feet. And that's what the card art does. So kudos for perfect illustration for that. There's a whole bunch of other things, like for example, skeletal swarming, classic zombie attack, and then there's spiked pit trap. So when you go dungeon delving in D&D, you go to dungeon crawl and you might forget to check for traps. We'll talk about that later. You might come across a trap, you fall into it, and this is lots of different things. There's those Indiana Jones as giant stone ball coming down and all that. Yeah, so there's a whole section in D&D dedicated to traps that you can read up on. And then there are the party actions. Now, having played it myself, these are phrases that the players might use while describing what they want to do to the Dungeon Master. So there's, of course, I want to bar the gate. I want to check for traps. I want to kick in the door. I've landed a critical hit, and I've decided to split the party after all, because, we're not going to take your advice. We want to take a long rest, and I'm choosing my weapon, that sort of thing. So yeah, these are pretty cool things in reference to. Next is equipment. Now this is actually interesting because they're all literally artifacts in Magic the Gathering. Some of them refer to pretty standard stuff that you'll find in the PHB. Of course, there's plate armor, there's the Wizard's Spellbook, there's a Great Axe, the Longbow, Morning Star, leather armor. But you'll find some magical items here as well. Specifically the Dancing Sword and the Vorpal Sword, Boots of Speed. These are things you'll actually find in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And you'll see alphabetically listed the +2 mace. That is a regular mace that you have sent to be refined by a blacksmith somewhere, and it goes up a level, which means in D&D when you roll a dice, you'll get a +1 to that roll. But in Magic the Gathering, it gives you a +2/+2. I'm not sure I would have done that because, a mace is an offensive weapon. Yeah, I know you could probably parry with it, but it doesn't add to your HP or your AC. So I'm not sure why I got a +2 to toughness, but Then of course there are items. Now these are not equipment per se. You can't equip them on a creature, but in the game, they're not weapons or armor either. they're things that players would use in the like, playing the campaign. So there are things like portable holes and potions of healing, which are magical. There are non-magical objects like thieves tools, or literally 50 feet of rope. Just want to mention, in a game of D&D, on that grid, each 1 inch square represents 5 feet in game. So 50 feet of rope means it spans 10 squares. That's a lot of rope. And I guess if you're on a 2D plane and you imagine going down 50 feet, you can just sort of imagine how high that dungeon really is. And of course, there's the classic bag of holding, one of my favorites, because we're a bit can't be asked to calculate everyone's encumbrance, so a bag of holding will do. Just shovel your things in there. It's a magical bag that holds more things. Doraemon's pocket, basically. And next we come to legends. Now, probably don't have to explain this, but in Magic the Gathering there are legendary creatures. They have unique names. So in this AFR card set, they clearly refer to characters that appear in a lot of D&D lore, the stories. They have entire novels or campaigns dedicated to them. So if you're interested, links in description, you can read up more about each of them. I've also got two subcategories here. One is legendary artifacts of, the aforementioned Deck of Many Things. There's the Book of Exalted Deeds and Book of Vile Darkness. These are literally books they printed in D&D, and they're also items in game. Black Staff of Waterdeep is pretty cool because Black Staff is a role but also an object in the game. The Wizard of Waterdeep. Waterdeep's the biggest city in the world of Forgotten Realms, I think in Faerun. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see it being an item here. Then there's the Eye and Hand of Vecna. Very specific evil objects as well. It's pretty cool that they're here, right? I guess it's sort of like the Kaldra set from Mirrodin. And you've got what I call legendary locations. Weirdly enough, even though I call them legendary creations, they are all... Weirdly enough, even though I call them legendary locations, they're all basic lands in Magic the Gathering. But I categorize them so because the flavor text of these basic cards name a very specific location in the world of D&D. Like Baldur's Gate, the Maelstrom, or even the Underdark, or 10 Towns, Icewind Dale. So yeah, it's pretty cool that they get name drops here. And I assume the illustration shows the actual place itself. Then there are locations. This is not legendary because the flavor text doesn't mention a specific place, but it refers to a region or an idea of a place. So I just call them locations in general. Then there are campaigns. Now, these non-basic lands, the names of these refer to some quite famous campaigns. For example, Hall of Storm Giants, or even Temple of Dragon Queen. That refers to the first printed campaign from the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And other stuff, like Evolving Wilds refers to the Netherese region of Faerun. So yeah, these are significant places in D&D. They may not be towns, but they are the mega dungeons in D&D. And lastly, these are all the spells and abilities. I actually took the effort to Google one card at a time, and I found that some of these spells refer to specific spells and abilities in D&D. Some of them paraphrase it a bit, but by searching the keywords, you can actually figure out what they are referring to. So if you want to have this comparison table, again, links in the description. The D&D reference will go to D&D Beyond. There is a very specific set of extra cards called the dungeons, and in the card mechanic there's something delved into the dungeon, and yeah, as a dungeon master, these are pretty cool oversimplified maps of how players would go through a dungeon. Very often a dungeon has multiple paths. They don't always have to take the one road in. If they do, some players might say you're railroading them. But there's the Lost Mine of Phandelver. That is a whole campaign on its own, and I've gone through it. That's an oversimplification of what you do in the campaign. Then there's a Tomb of Annihilation, another whole campaign there. Dungeon of Mad Mage. Yeah, another campaign. In fact, it name drops the Yawning Portal. It's the Yawning Portal's a literal hole in the city of Waterdeep, and a pub, a tavern, and it's kind of like in the middle of it. Links in the description if you want to read more about it. And last but not least, I'm including some Magic the Gathering cards that are not part of the Adventure Forgotten Realms per se, but they use the D&D theme, so I thought it's pretty cool. First, there's the Sword of Dungeons and Dragons, very obvious reference there, but it's part of the Sword of Something Duality artifact series, so it's pretty cool to include. And of course, there's literally a card called Dungeon Master. He's a planeswalker with a variable loyalty, so I thought it's pretty cool. He's the character from the D&D cartoon. He's got his own card, but we're probably not going to get it, are we? Hey everyone, thank you for watching. That was literally the second video we've uploaded as Kaki Tabletop. I'm sorry if it's a little long. I'm going to try something a bit different, but let us know in the comments if there's anything else you'd like to see from us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our official Kaki Tabletop social media channels.